a Chrysler New Yorker, an Oldsmobile 88, and a Horizon America. What's a Horizon America? This time on Talking Vehicles with Joe. I'm doing a series of videos about vehicles that I've owned. The last video ended with my 1986 Chrysler LeBaron. If you haven't had a chance to watch the first two that I did, might be a good idea to go back and watch those because it'll kind of chronologically bring you up to through a progression of vehicles to this point. I've owned almost 40 vehicles. I'm not going to do 40 videos. Some vehicles just aren't worth a whole video. But I'm going to talk about the vehicles, give you a quick overview of my impression of them, and anything that was interesting about some of them, I will do a little bit more. But I'm going to do another video that's a more in-depth video talking about some of the interesting things happened with some of the cars that I own and some of the interesting things I did while I owned them. Road trips and those kind of things. So as I said, I last left off with my 1986 Chrysler LeBaron. Now, the lease was coming to an end on that car, but while I owned it in about 1987, the lease on my 1984 Mercury Topaz was coming to an end, and I was using it as a business use vehicle. The problem with leasing is they have mileage restrictions, and it was really tough to stay within the mileage restriction and do business use for the vehicle. So a decision was made that I actually needed to buy a car instead of leasing it. Now, my wife and I were planning on starting a family at that point and decided we didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on a vehicle to drain resources that we may need for our up-and-coming family. So I began car shopping with a very definite and tight budget in mind. Back in the mid to late 1980s, Chrysler Corporation introduced a series of vehicles they called the America series. It was the Dodge Omni, the Plymouth Horizon, and I believe the Plymouth Reliant and Dodge Aries got the America treatment. And basically what the America treatment was, they added some popular options on the vehicles and priced them at a very competitive price. For example, the Omni and Horizon got air conditioning, AM/FM radio, left driver's remote control mirror, an upgraded interior with cloth seats, and so a few other little trim options that upgraded it. And I believe the Reliant and the Aries got an AM/FM, actually AM/FM stereo. Well, I looked around and decided I was going to buy a 1987 Plymouth Horizon America. I found one that was very nice. It had upgraded interior. Mine actually had upgraded high back bucket seats. Mine was a 5-speed manual, although I believe you could get an automatic at no charge on that America series. It had the 2.2 engine in it. And it was actually a very good little car. Now, the problem with it was little, but it was a good car. I had very few problems with that. And I drove that car for over 2 years until I took a job that provided me a company car. So anyway, the LeBaron, the lease was going to be ending on that. We were coming into 1989, and the lease was in. I'd taken a 3-year lease on my 86 LeBaron, and it was time to go car shopping for a replacement for that car. And back to the Chrysler dealer we went, and they had a 1988 Chrysler New Yorker. Now, the Chrysler New Yorker was a K-based car, but the wheelbase was stretched, and the car was certainly didn't have K styling. It was a little bit more robust than looking just like another K car with some additional trim and nice features. It also had the 3-liter V6 in it. The New Yorker I bought was a 1988. It had been a factory official car. At least that's what the salesperson told me. Had about 10,000 miles on it. It was the New Yorker Salon, which was the base New Yorker. That meant it didn't have a padded Landau top or a pillow cushion interior, although it did have very, very nice, almost like a velour type cloth on the seats. The New Yorker I had was nicely equipped. It had the Infinity sound system, one of the best sound systems I've ever had in any car, even to this day. Maybe not the best, but among the best. It also had power driver's seat, power windows, power locks, power trunk, and a power antenna. The car was a black cherry. It was a very, very, very deep burgundy color. As a matter of fact, at nighttime, without light on it, it almost looked black. And the interior was kind of a cranberry red. It was a beautiful car. And it had nice big wide white wall. As a matter of fact, a dual stripe white wall on it. One real wide white wall and then one narrow thin stripe on it too. When I bought that car, I remember very clearly. We bought the car, and I was so excited because it was such a nice car, and it was really the first really not. Well, I shouldn't say that. The Pontiac Grand Prix I had was a very nice car, but it was the first really nice car I'd had in a while. But we got in the car. We're getting ready to go home. The salesman, of course, is out there delivering the car to us. I sit down in the driver's seat. The salesman closes the driver's door, and the strip of fake wood trim that ran across the door just beneath the belt line of the car fell off in my lap. And I remember looking at that thinking, is this a sign of things to come? Well, it was. But I immediately called the salesman back over and held this up. And I said, are these things supposed to fall off? And, he was very embarrassed and very apologetic and said, we'll fix it right now. Took the car back to the body shop. They reattached it and we took the car home. That car had a multitude of problems. That car convinced me that it was possible for cars to become demon possessed. I won't go into all the problems that it had, but it had a host of problems. But we did wound up keeping that car for 4 years and put some miles on it. Took some vacation trips on it with it. Now, with my Horizon America that we bought in 1987, I drove that car till 1989, switched jobs, and was getting a company car. The first company car I got was a Ford Taurus, and you'll if you've seen the company car videos I did a description of that, talked about that car. When the Taurus needed to be replaced, the company gave me a 1988 Ford Tempo GLS. I had that car 2 months, and the company decided they weren't going to provide company cars anymore, but to compensate for the fact that we weren't getting company cars, they gave me the car. I got the title in the mail a couple of months after they made that decision. And the Tempo I really didn't like very well, and it had some problems. So I took it and I traded it in on a 1990 Plymouth Acclaim. Now, the Plymouth Acclaim, this was in 1991. The Plymouth Acclaim was the same situation as the New Yorker. It had about 10,000 miles on it. And the salesman told me that it had been a factory official car. And it was a very loaded Acclaim. It was the LX model, which was the upgraded Acclaim. And it was really loaded. It had a pop-out manual sunroof. You would grab the hinge on the roof and pop the roof open. And if you wanted to take it out, you would disconnect the hinge and the glass part of the roof would lift out. It also had the Infinity sound system, so I was so happy. I had 2 cars with a wonderful sound system. It had the 3-liter V6, tilt-wheel cruise control, power driver's seat, power windows, power lock, all the good stuff on it. And I drove that car for about 2 years, and it began to have problems. One of the big problems it began to have was it drank oil. The Mitsubishi 3-liter V6, when it got to about 60,000 miles, drank oil. I mean, I'd put a quart in every second time I'd fill the gas tank. So pretty soon we just decided, hey, there's something wrong with this car. That's going to get worse. I don't want to, the mileage was getting up. It had over 70, almost 80,000 miles on it. And I didn't want to invest a lot of money into it, especially if it needed an engine work. So I traded that car in on a 1992 Mercury Sable. The Sable had about 5,000 miles on it. And again, I was told by the salesperson that it had been a factory official car. Now, the Sable was the GS model. It wasn't the highest trim level, but it was nicely equipped. It had power driver's seat, power windows, locks, tilt, cruise, all that good stuff. And that car was white with a blue velour interior. And it had buckets. It was a console shift, not a console shift. It was a column shift. but it had split seats. So it was very, very nice, very comfortable car. Although I am convinced that that car was wrecked. I could never get the alignment right and have the steering wheel be centered properly. It was always cocked at an angle if the alignment was set properly. If I went to an alignment shop and said, make this steering wheel straight, they couldn't get the alignment right. And the car wore front tires rather unusually. So I drove that car for about 50,000 miles, decided I'd had enough of that, and traded it in on a 1995 Pontiac Grand Prix. Now, the Grand Prix was the SE model, the base model, but it was nicely equipped, power driver's seat, power windows, locks, tilt cruise, cassette stereo. It wasn't an upgraded stereo, but it was a cassette. And the car was black with a kind of a dark gray interior. It was a nice car, 3.1 V6, 4-speed overdrive, very nice riding and driving car. In 1993, we decided we had enough of the New Yorker. It was starting to give us some problems. So we traded it in on a 1993 Oldsmobile 88 Royale. Oldsmobile had gone to a one price strategy on their car, very similar to what Saturn had, and there was no negotiating on it. I remember the price of that car was $19,998, but it was nicely equipped, had power windows, power seats, tilt crew, all the good stuff on it. And it had a power trunk and a power antenna. That car was one of the best cars we ever owned. We put 90,000 basically trouble-free miles on that car. It was red with a gray interior. So I'm going to stop now. The video is getting kind of long. That kind of brings you on through the cars that we owned up into the 1990s. And again, I appreciate you watching. I hope you find these videos interesting, and keep an eye out for next Friday for the next Talking Vehicles with Joe. Thanks for watching. See you next Friday.